Baie welkom. Daar's ons 'n of twee mense wat aankom. Welcome Dan. Welcome to this morning's webinar. So I'm going to get going. Anthi is my left and right hand. She's sitting next to me. She'll admit people as we continue. So welcome everyone. I decided as a business coach, now 10 years in the game, after I've been writing my own check for 30 years, today I want to do it slightly different. So I thought instead of doing a full PowerPoint presentation and just talking through the slides, the idea was to rather do this a live business-focused workshop. So I'm definitely going to share with you a lot about how I see successful business, but I am going to use my good old faithful paper flip chart, and I'm going to be coaching you through what I regard to be some of the most important principles around business that needs to be in place. After all, we're all here and we've got business in common, and we want to build successful, sustainable, profitable business that is able to exist without us, operate without us, happen without us. Because if we are always having to show up, we've only just created a self-employed, could I say, in certain cases, maybe even a jail where we just feel ourselves oppressed, always having to show up, always having to be the rainmaker, the one that makes it happen. So I thought to share with you today a couple of important principles around business. But before we start, maybe just a quick intro around myself. There are some of you on the call that know me very well. But for those people that don't know me very well, I am a business coach. But I think it's safe to say that I am also an entrepreneur at heart. I've been in business in some way or form for more than 30 years. Yeah, now you can guess my age. And business has been my destiny since the day I started. I grew up in a house. My dad was an entrepreneur. He started his business when I was in matric. I went to university. I did personnel management, it was called those days. I ended up doing my master's, joined a big corporate, Eastcore head office. And 6 years into that journey, I decided, that's it, I'm not built for this. And I rang my dad up and I said, hey, Dad, I'd like to come and join the family business. At that stage, it was him and my mom. So, so for me, right back to 1994 is where my journey started as an entrepreneur, writing my own check. There's a couple of things happened. I was involved in the family business for 11 years doing marketing and sales. Welcome, Kirsten. And, way back then in 1994, it was the beginning of cell phones. The internet was not even in existence. Maybe a couple of nerdy guys was playing around with the possibility of having a wide internet that could connect all of us, but none of that was possible. So I started off my career doing sales and marketing, knocking on doors, shaking hands, kissing babies. We were selling welding machines and equipment, consumables, and also doing the repair. And I was the voice and the face of the family business. That so far back as 30 years ago. After that, 11 years later, I started my own, another business, which is a guest house. And so, by the way, 19 years later, I still got my guest house in Kempton Park. I've got 24 rooms. We're knocking on 90% occupancy. But here I am in the Cape, 1,500 k's away from my guest house. Yes, managing the guest house is a joint effort between me and my husband. But again, we've been able to establish a business that can operate without us. We've got management in place. We've got staff in place. And the guest house has been a blessing for me in many ways. Then 15 years ago, we decided to move down to the beautiful Cape, as you can see. And every day I get to say, thank the Lord for grace and opportunity to live in the Cape. But then, of course, when I got here, so what do I do now? And I started my second business, which is a business broking company. And I think it's safe to say that that is where my real journey started in coaching. Unbeknown to me, it was going to lead me to coaching. Why? Because as a business broker, I found myself in conversations with business owners that's interested in selling their business, or, they just moeg, they just like moeg. Many of them just said, I can't do this anymore. I hate my business. I don't like the people working for me. I'm old. I need to go on pension. I need to rest. Please, can you sell my business? And then, evaluating a business and looking at the drivers of value, which in most businesses, it is EBITDA. It is the net profit before interest and tax that determines the value of the business. So we would use a PE ratio. And for most businesses, all of you on this call, your PE ratio applicable to your business would probably be somewhere between 2.5, 3 times your net profit before tax interest. So your net profit, your EBITDA. So do that calculation and then see if you're excited about what the potential value of your business is. Now, of course, 6 years down the line, I was introduced to coaching. And this is now 9 years, almost 10 years later. I've been a dedicated coach working with business owners and assisting business owners in building profitable business. There's been a lot of wins for me on this journey. And I think, I've stopped counting. I've actually got to ask Ansi how many businesses we've now coached, but it's well over 300 businesses in the last 10 years. And there's been so many wins where I've seen entrepreneurs and business owners grow. I've seen them again believe in themselves and their business and what potentially is possible. Because let's face it, guys, and I think that's one of the challenges that I'd like to share with you. It's a lonely place out there. I mean, who do we talk to? I remember we had friends way back in Kenton Park after I opened the guest house. And I wasn't realizing this, but every time when we'll have a braai or a get together, I'll be talking about the guest house because I'm so excited. And then the one day, my friend said to me, she turned to me and she said, I wish you would stop talking about the guest house. And I was sort of taken aback. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. She says, yes, every waking moment you talk about the bloody guest house. And I'm sick of it. Whew, that nearly destroyed our friendship. But I did realize an important thing, that as an entrepreneur, we're very lonely. And who do we get to talk to? And often it's our closest friends or even our spouse and family that gets to hear, the daily moans and groans of how my day went. And I think that's why business community is for me so precious. Because amongst us here on the call today, we've got so much in common. But the one thing we do have in common is the fact that we are all in business. And that makes us souls with a common cause, I suppose. So, yeah, lots of challenges in business. I also found myself last year coaching a big national company. They had a ransomware attack, and I got a call. I think it was the 7th of January last year. Hey, coach, we do value what you do. I do a lot of management training for them, and they said we've got absolutely no way, but we've got to cut down on all non-essential services. And of course, my coaching was collateral damage. And I found myself in a position where 60% of my income gets wiped off the table, and it's January 2024, and I go, okay, this is interesting, this is challenging, what am I going to do? So if that sounds familiar, I've been there as well. So what do I do? And I think it's important just to position coaching. What does a coach do? Um, maybe I can ask you, Kirsten, what do what's your summary of what would be the main focus of a coach? Doesn't have to be a business coach, but what do you think a coach does?
Me? Just
No,
sort of.
you. Putting you on the spot. Good morning, Kirsten.
Good morning. You're putting me on the spot. What does a coach do? Well, yeah, I've been on a few of your courses, and yeah, I think it's definitely coaching you in the right direction. Obviously, looking at your looking at your company and pinpointing your where your areas are and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and obviously growing your business, directing you and how to grow your business, and yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. So it's a coach is there to support you. A coach is there to sit down with you and unpack where you are at in terms of your business growth, no growth, maybe a little bit of a punch drunk, like I just don't know the way forward. So a coach is someone that enables you to play a better game. A coach enables you to have maybe a predetermined strategy where, okay, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. Okay, now you go, you implement, you come back, we review the results, and we see whether we're getting excited about what happened or not. So a coach never gets involved in the game. A coach is always on the sideline, watching, making notes, and then maybe it's slightly, there's some critique, like this is what I saw you doing, or this is what I've noticed. What other options could you have? So a coach never gets involved. So that's an important thing to understand. I'll never get involved in your business and tell you, listen, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It's always going to be your business. And I would like to empower you to be the best possible business owner that you could possibly be, unlocking your potential and the potential of your business. Hi, Yuri. Welcome to the call.
Hi, morning, Lindie. Sorry, I was just up in the factory. Sorry about that.
All good, but nice to have you, Yuri. So
Thank you.
what do I do as a coach? I get involved with businesses and business owners and also management teams where we do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I'm also doing a lot of training. So for those of you at the end of this call that might be interested, I'm starting a new business masterclass training course in July. It runs over 6 months. It's going to cost you not even 2,000 Rand a month. So in total, around about 12,000. And you'll have me as your coach dedicated for 6 months teaching you the principles of business. Absolutely fantastic training opportunity. So for any one of you that feels stuck and just want to invest in yourself, getting better at this science and art of business, join the class. There's limited seats. There's only a place for 10 people. So let me know if you're interested and we can talk about the detail. Other training that I do is I'll be starting with sales training, and I know Yuri and they must put up their hand to join the sales training. So I'm also starting sales training. So that takes you through the whole science of sales, a little bit of marketing, but a lot about sales. What is the science of sales? What does the sales process look like? How do I need to develop? What are the skills I need to close those prospects into a successful sale? So I'll also be starting sales training soon. And then what I do a lot of is management training. So if you've got people in your team that manages operations or manages your team and you've never invested in their knowledge and skill, I do a lot of management training as well. So there we go. I do one-on-one coaching, working with entrepreneurs and business owners, looking at strategy, looking at all aspects of business, developing a game plan and keeping you accountable to implement. But I also do a lot of dedicated training, all of those starting within the next month or so. So let me ask those of you, please unmute yourself, put up your hand, but I'd like to get an idea. And for those of you that joined late, I've decided to do an in-person training, coaching webinar on how to build a successful business, looking at important things that I regard to be absolutely not negotiable if you want to build a successful business that is sustainable and increase in value. So let's go. What are some of the common challenges that we face as business owners and entrepreneurs? So please unmute yourself and let's share a little bit in terms of our common pains, those things that keep us awake at night. So anyone wants to share, what are some challenges? Come on, let's have an interactive conversation. Monica, unmute yourself and tell me, Monica, what are some challenges you're experiencing?
Sorry, I was just having trouble to unmute myself.
No, that's fine, no problem.
Actually, I made a note now when you spoke about the sales training that you're going to do, is we need to create a proper sales funnel and automate more, because that is what's taking up most of our time.
Okay, so let's unpack that and automate. Okay. So by the way, I was never destined to become a teacher, right? So I scribble like mad, but just bear with me. So what's the story about needing to create a sales funnel? So what is the challenge that you'd like to overcome and address with that?
Look, at this point, we're a small company. We are three main people. And two of those people spend most of their days talking to new leads, taking them through the whole registration process. We're a training company, and doing SWOT analysis with people, doing all of that. And there are questions that are kept on being asked, and we're working on WhatsApp Business to get to automate that to a sense. But they still spend so much time having to explain things to people that could be explained by automation, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we've got to get better and far more effective in taking a person interested in our services through the process of showing who we are, defining their need, and then putting some options on the table, closing them from prospect to sale, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So I think that's a common challenge. First of all, got to make sure that we've got effective marketing. So we've got enough prospects in our funnel that we can meticulously work through in order to deselect those that's not really interested, but just inquiring, but close the ones that are interested. And we've got to get really good at that. So absolutely, Monica, I think it's a common challenge with business owners. Great contribution. Anyone else? Come on, Kirsten, what do you think could be a common challenge for business owners out there?
I think, sorry, is it on? Can you hear me?
Okay. We can perfectly hear you.
I was having sound issues yesterday, so I just wanted to make sure. I think, bringing in sales is always a big one. That's always, whenever I speak to them, it's always is sales, bringing in sales and how to bring in sales and where to find them. What are they, obviously, what are their, who are they targeting? And how, why, where, it's all those that you're writing. Sales is always
absolutely.
a big, number one.
And Kirsten, often when I sit down with business owners and they say, you know what, I'm just not good at sales. And I go, okay, that's a big problem because, if you can't attract the right type of client and you can't close them, there's no money in the business, right?
Exactly.
So it is absolutely the lifeline of a business is to keep on being effective in attracting the right type of client, the one that I would like to have a conversation with, the one that's within my target market.
Yes, and how to reach them. How do I reach them? Yes, how do I get to them?
Yeah, so this one, how? Because I mean, there's digital media marketing, there's direct marketing, there's social marketing. Marketing has become such a big topic, and I think many business owners just tap out and say, "Oh my God, I'm losing myself in all of this. I'm just like going to close my eyes and pray for the best." Yeah, and that's not going to work. But yeah, you're right. So marketing and sales a big problem and a common problem. Anyone else? Let's see. Dan Jacobs. Nice to see you. So Dan, what do you think? What is a common challenge that business owners have?
Oh, I think there's a heap. I think one of them would be the ability for a company to scale. So I think at some point there's this, if the systems and stuff aren't in place in a business, you kind of hit a ceiling where you kind of go, we can't grow anymore. And I think a big thing around that is that the entrepreneur, the person who started the business, has put themselves in a place where they're the pinch point. So, and there's only so many hours in the day, isn't there? So you get to the point where you can't do more, you can't grow more because there's no more of you. And I think, very often I see that as well, where people get to the point where you kind of think like, I can't give anymore. I haven't got any more hours in the day. So it's trying to get people into that situation where they, I'm hoping, I'm not trying to solve the solution here, but getting people disconnected from the growth so that people can spend more time thinking about their business rather than being that, doing the business bit. But the reason I mention all that is I think there's who was it? I think is Elon Musk. I think he said like the trouble with the CEO is that you get all the worst jobs. And very often I think people take all the worst jobs on for themselves. And I mean, your worst job might be someone else's really good thing they really enjoy doing. For instance, I hate accounting, cannot stand it. But, there's people who really love the numbers and stuff. So I think very often we create this rod for our own backs where we, feel we have to be suffering and doing the crappy jobs. But, it's I think it's the perspective, I think, in terms of, what should you be spending your time on? And I don't know what the solution to that is. I think there might be some essence of, coaching your own staff into a position where you can trust them to take stuff on.
Of course.
And that's letting go of some things, which I think is very difficult for people to do.
Dan, you've touched on so many critical things. So let me just comment on a couple of things. You started off by saying how to scale. So once you've got some momentum going in your business, at what point do I have the confidence that I now need to let go? But I can't let go if I'm going to put the company on risk. So the only way I can safely, with confidence, let go is if I've got a trusted team that can take over and that I can trust that will be able to maintain, the momentum of the business, deliver on the KPIs. But you also said another thing that's so important is, as entrepreneurs, we get involved in the operational stuff of the business, the doing, running around, fixing, sorting, planning, maybe even jumping in a car and go and do some deliveries, or, not happy with sourcing of materials, and then all of a sudden, just busy. And that in itself creates the trap where a lot of business owners find themselves years later. They've been so busy focusing on the operational stuff, they've never really spent enough time, and that's the word you use, not enough time to plan ahead in terms of, where am I going with this business? What is the end in mind? At what stage am I looking to start to pull back? And have I developed the next tier of management that could take over from where I am at the moment? I've seen a client in the week. They're a subsidiary of a listed company, all three directors between the ages of 58 and 62. They're having so much fun. The business are doing well. They literally, guys, growing double figures. And here we are having a conversation whilst we're having fun and it's the time of our life. We do realize that we can't keep this up. And at some point, we are being the handbrake in terms of growth. So we absolutely realize that we need to now start invest in development of succession, identifying skill and talent that are able to take the reins of the company. And yeah, so that's an interesting conversation. So you'll see when I start sharing with you some principles, Dan, absolutely spending enough time to make sure that I've got a good, well thought out strategy and plan that I often review becomes critical. And part of those questions is, if we're looking to scale, are we facing risk? What are the milestones or pillars of growth that needs to be in place in order for us to scale without too much risk? Absolutely, great one. Okay, so none of you have said team. I'm actually quite amazed, you know. So none of you have said team. And I know working with entrepreneurs, the good old team drives us insane. You know, it's those challenges around managing people, and they come and they go, and the constant challenge around, am I getting enough return for my buck? So I invest in terms of salaries, infrastructure, equipment, but am I happy with the level of performance? And that's often also something that don't sadly get enough attention in the space, because again, we're so busy running around fixing things that we don't spend enough time thinking around performance management, performance feedback, critical KPIs that I need to evaluate my staff against and then give them feedback. So, and then of course, the big one is money, money, money. Many business owners being cash strapped, not having enough disposable income, and that in itself becomes a huge challenge, because if I don't have disposable income, I am really handcuffed in terms of my ability to scale. I'm handcuffed in terms of my ability to grow my business, because there's just no surplus cash. I don't have the money to invest in technology. I don't have enough money to invest in team. I don't have enough money to invest in new equipment. So money, 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 money. And whether we love money, whether we hate money, I don't know how you feel about money. I mean, I've always said I don't like money, but I appreciate the power of money, because money does make the world go round, and it is the enabler of business, whether we want to know that or not. So I'll definitely be sharing some thoughts around financial management, because again, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you suck at it, whether you're good at it, you've got to understand the financial management of your business. It becomes the key for making really good decisions. Dan, you've got your hand raised. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I quite like money. I'm a big fan.
No, absolutely, especially taking us on to wonderful places, right?
Yeah, I think to talk about your points, I've spent a lot of time in my career going into supply chains and working with supply chain companies. And very often you're going to go into a business and you see people working really hard at stuff. It's almost like they're on an exercise bike, but they want to get somewhere. And you kind of think like, well, you're spinning in the same place. And the people talk about like entrepreneurs have got an MBA, right? You manage by accident, because you don't. It's almost like you land in this role, you start a business, and then things happen. And you've got to be a jack of all trades. And a common thing I see with companies is that they end up. It's almost like the entrepreneurs and the leaders of the business manage people by being behind them and going, no, don't do that, no, don't do this, no, don't do that, and the people working in the company kind of going like, well, I don't know what to do because you haven't told me what's our strategy, what's our goal. And I don't know if you'll touch on this, but to me it's very obvious, knowing the companies that know where they want to go. If there's some sort of dynamic vision for the business that people really live, that makes it much easier for everyone in the organization to understand stuff and where to go. But it's so uncommon. You don't see it very often at all. So I think it's a lot of inefficiencies in small companies, which you can just take away from just by having like a common vision or something like that. But how we do that, I think, would be interesting to know. How do you get to the point where someone understands? That firstly, I mean, the leader's got to know what that vision is. But then how do you make it something which your team can get behind? So that lack of direction, I think, is something which a lot of companies, I think, struggle with.
Absolutely, Dan. Clarity of direction. And then how do I translate that to involve everyone, get everyone excited? Because your team needs to buy in terms of the desired future. Because, I mean, otherwise you're always going to be alone pushing while, you would want to lead and they follow. So I'm definitely, a big passion of mine is strategic envisioning of the future and then leading team towards that. So I'm definitely going to unpack that for sure. That's for me a not negotiable, the ability to define the future, but then also what you've said is having the ability to now define roles and say, okay, everyone on my team, what is their highest level of contribution? So what are the values that they need to add in order to take us forward? And I think that's critically important. I'm definitely going to touch on that. Monica, you've got your hand raised. Is there something you'd like to comment on?
Actually, I want to agree with Dan so much, because he said earlier as well, there's this thing about entrepreneurs always suffering because you're always busy, but being busy and being productive is not necessarily the same thing. And that's where I agree with Dan, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's been on my mind the past few days. It's like busy, but are we really productive?
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely. And can I show progress amongst all this busyness at the end of a Friday, kaput, finished, claw, exhausted, but look back and but what did I achieve? Not much. So yeah, so as you can see, definitely common challenges: money, team, how to scale, lack of a plan, sales, marketing. Now, I'd like to reference a couple of books in presenting to you what I'd like to share now. The one book, and I think, Dan, you made such an important point. I don't know who of you have ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Michael Gerber. Now, if you haven't, grab the book and read it. Every entrepreneur and business owner, even if you are planning to have a business, whether you are a couple of years down the line in your business, grab this book. This is Michael Gerber. He's the father of franchising. He's the father of the idea that over time I need to remove myself from the core aspects of my business because I can't be the one always running around fixing things. I can't be the one always telling people what to do, because at some stage they need to start taking ownership, and I need to be able to remove myself without risk whilst the business continues to grow. Now, the summary of the E-Myth, Michael Gerber says, when we start off as in a business, we can be regarded as the technician. Now, maybe I can just use a very simple example. Say, for instance, I'm passionate about manufacturing furniture. And one day I get an idea that I'd like to start a business in manufacturing furniture, and that's it. I make the decision, very brave, on a Sunday. That's it. I print my business cards, I get a website domain, and I start manufacturing furniture. Initially, so I can regard myself as a technician. I'm the carpenter. I order the material, I do the cutting, I do the design, I do the actual manufacturing, I land my first couple of sales and orders, and I'm super excited. Yay! People are interested in my product, and I'm really pumped now because I'm the technician, I've got my hands on the business, but now I also do the delivery. Oh dear, I've also got to do the accounting. Oh dear, I've got to chase the money. Oh dear, as soon as I've delivered the first batch of furniture, I haven't marketed at all. So now there's some dry seasons, and now I jump onto the marketing, market, land some more sales. Now I've got to leave that for a moment. Now I've got to order material. I've got to make sure that I do the design. I do the cutting. Oh no, there's some changes to the design. I now need to do a different design. All of a sudden, here I am working all living hours of the day. I'm having fun, and there's maybe some money in the bank, but I'm a business owner after all. Now, exactly what Dan said, this is not sustainable. So at some stage, hopefully my business is going so well, Michael Gerber said, what is the first logical step then? Is of course I get myself an admin lady or a finance lady, or I get myself a cutting hand, an assistant, I maybe get myself a driver. So the moment I start employing a team, I'm no longer just the technician, but I've employed a team, and now I've got a different role, a second role, and my second role is that of a manager, right? So exactly to your point, Dan, now, as soon as I become a manager, I've just got so much time, right? So now I've got to decide what am I going to keep doing, and what am I going to delegate and leave for others to do. So the problem with many entrepreneurs is they don't do the transition. They sort of jump between technician and manager, and we all know we've got so many hours in the day. So at some stage, the one is at the cost of the other. And because managing a team is so difficult, because we haven't been coached, we don't have the skill, we don't have a management system in place, what often happens, teams sort of left to their own device, and we jump back into technician, because after all, that's our trade. This is what we love doing. This is our purpose, is to build beautiful furniture. The team sort of must now look after themselves. And of course, what Michael Gerber said is get people that can be better at your trade, become better in terms of managing this team. Because if you get really, really good at managing people, and what is managing people about? It is developing people, being assertive as a manager, implementing processes, because a manager's job is to make sure that you grow your team to be productive and efficient. Productive meaning every guy exactly doing their job, what is their role, delivering on what you expect them to do, so that are productive, the output is productive, and efficient, meaning that we're making best use of our resources. So you leave the technician role in the hands of well-qualified, well-trained, well-skilled people, and you become the manager overseeing people so that you are getting predictable results. Now, of course, all businesses want to grow. So what Michael Gerber says, now what needs to happen is we need to transcend to the next level. And that is the level of he calls it an entrepreneur level. But all it says is now, once we start getting people that manages other people, we have now bought the time
Morning,
to
Kim.
now move our focus.
Finding you.
We need
Shame, are you busy? Hey.
Sorry, I think someone is chatting with someone else.
Good. No, don't worry. I'm here whenever you're ready.
Sorry, I'm just gonna.
Did you have a good week, Kim?
Who's having a chat?
Wow.
Okay, right. Okay, so when we get other people managing your team, you can translate towards being an entrepreneur. So what is the job of the entrepreneur? Michael Gerber says that unless you focus on the future, unless you have a well-defined, well-devised, well-thought-out plan in terms of where are we growing towards, what is the desired future of our business. So the entrepreneur is the one that spends time around strategy, around plan, around tactics, thinking around competitive edge. Where's my next business going to be? Which markets can we start focusing on? How can we diversify our product? Can we scale? Can we open up different operations throughout? So once you transcend to entrepreneur, you've got to realize there is no going back. So this is, for me, leadership. So a manager is operational, busy with the tactical stuff, the tactical challenges, the organizing, the planning, making sure that we are productive and efficient, managing stuff, fixing problems, making decisions, planning, where leadership is all about the envisioned future of the company and all the important thinking and planning and reviewing that needs to take place. Because the better we can clarify the future, and in Dan's words, now we can communicate and we can pay forward what we see, and in such a way that people get excited and put up their hand and say, hey, I want to be part of it. So please grab the E-Myth of Michael Gerber. It's a brilliant book, and it explains in a very easy, common way the various roles and maturity levels in an organization, and all the things that's important in terms of your role as the entrepreneur. Guys, of course, I'd like to invite you to share with me, if you have these blinding flashes of, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is just what I've learned right now, and I'm excited about, the learning. Right, so I'd like to take you through 4 areas of business. And, when I look at those of you on the call, from Louis, that's got a common office, a venture workspace, Dan Jacobs in software, I think, in the UK, Yuri, you guys in furniture, manufacturing and upholstery, Elna in decor, paint and decor, Helene in financial investment. I mean, you guys are coming at me from all sorts, all sorts of businesses, but there's a couple of things that I believe is common to all business. So whether you have a manufacturing business, whether you have got a professional services business, whether you have got a retail manufacturing business, what are the common things that all businesses have in common? That's absolutely not negotiable. We all got to be focusing on these elements in order to have a profitable, successful business that is sustainable. And I think the very first thing, I can't put it more plain, is what is the plan? Now, it is not a business plan typed up in 13 pages, in 5-fold, distributed to your team for them to read on a Sunday afternoon. That's not a plan. A plan or strategic planning or future thinking is where you allow yourself enough time to sit with your team and perhaps your coach and answer some real important questions about the future. Now, of course, in order to do that, we first got to ask ourselves, what is our starting point? Where are we now? Let's take the last year's financial results. Let's take some time to analyze the results. Where's our business come from? What was the what is the percentage contribution of certain products to revenue? So met ander woorde, what is our fast movers? what is the market's appetite for our products and services? So what does it look like? So we thought it was A, but it seems to be now B. In my case, last year, when I lost 60% of my coaching income due to a big client pausing for the moment, I had to pivot and say, okay, how do I catch up on 60% of income? And I had to adjust. I had to pivot with my team. And we had to quickly put management training, sales training, customer excellence training in place to make up for the loss of income. So it's analyzing the past and ask ourselves, what are we learning about the essence of our business? So we've got to spend a lot of time in terms of looking at our updated, detailed, and accurate financial results, and we ask ourselves, where are we now? And then, of those of you that haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, that would be my next recommendation. Please read the book. It is absolutely critical because he talks about the most important second principle is always start with the end in mind. Now, it's not necessarily when life ceases to end on this planet. No, we want to have a sense of what is this gap between where we find ourselves now and what is our desired future. Now, back to furniture manufacturing. Say, for instance, we are running a single operation. We are profitable at the moment, but it's still a single owner operation. Starting with the end in mind, and say, for instance, it's my business. I'm now, say, 55 years old, and I've got to look in the mirror and I've got to ask myself, at what stage would I like to now integrate maybe a little bit more quality of life? I'd like to have the freedom to decide what I want to do with my time. Maybe try and catch up on lost time with my loved ones. Maybe time to play with my grandkids. Maybe go on that cruise that I've always dreamt about. Maybe it's me and my partner's 40th anniversary and promised him or her that we'll go to the Maldives. So now's the time for me to do that. But most importantly, also asking questions around where am I in terms of developing the next tier, the next level of team that needs to now start taking over management and leadership in such a way that we are still as profitable and still growing. So we don't want the risk. So we've got to ask ourselves, that's the starting point. The start with the end in mind, and it's really difficult to think like 10 years ahead of time. But let's say 5 years from now. So we're now 2025. So by 2030, then I'll be 60 years old. What is my business? Well, how should my business look like? Will I still be a single location, or would I have maybe duplicated into 1 or 2 major centers? Are we looking to add additional products and services to our line? Questions around profitability, because as an owner, I'm interested in return on investment. Am I happy in terms of our current levels of profitability? Are we serving the right market? So all those questions that needs to be asked in order to come up with a strategy for my business. Now, when I work with business owners, there's, I call it a 1-page strategy plan. Now, so apart from setting milestones for growth around maybe there's always financial goals. So we want to grow our company, say, by double figures, minimum 10% in revenue, but 20% or 15% in profit. We want to improve our gross profit margin, and we want to do that building up to 5 years from now. But what are the non-financial KPIs that we also want to address? Things like how effective we are in terms of marketing. Can we improve on our marketing efforts? Can we become better in terms of our sales conversion? Am I happy with the culture in the business? Are we a purpose, value-driven? Do we have a purpose, value-driven culture? All those things that's important in terms of non-financial KPIs. So if you look at the essence of a strategy for your business, we definitely got to address culture and values. So you want to be building a strong culture with our ideology. What is the values that believe in? Because values is how we behave. People like us do things like us. We definitely would love to do a SWOT analysis. So we want to look towards what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, how do we project towards the future in terms of opportunities and weaknesses that we need to address. Then thirdly, we want to come up with a longer term target. So we could talk about 10 years from now, but more importantly, 3 to 5 years from now. What are the important building blocks that we need to get in place in order to grow our business moving forward, addressing that gap that I spoke about? And then lastly, definitely what's going to be the priority or the focus for the next year, for this current year? What are the things that we need to get right? Now back to Dan's comment. Once we've got clarity around all the elements of our strategic plan, now we start engaging with our team in unpacking and translating and explaining our strategic plan, how we see the future. And then comes the invitation. So tell me, Shaul, what is your thoughts? Where do you see yourself adding value? Because in the end, you would want everyone on your team playing to their highest level of contribution. What are their specific skills? What are they really, really good at? How would they add value? What are the functional areas that they need to take responsibility and ownership for, against which you will be measuring their performance in terms of a certain outcome? So once we've got the plan, right? Once we've got clarity around the plan, now we say, okay, so I've got a team who is going to do what, by when, continuously, and how will I measure performance? Because if your team and the critical people in your team knows that who they are, what you expect of them in terms of their job, their contribution, the difference that they make, the ownership and the responsibility that they take. But there's definite timelines in terms of when this needs to happen. And I'm clear in terms of how I will be measuring your performance. Now I can get into a frequency of performance feedback where I involve the individual in terms of, okay, tell me, how do you think you did? Are you happy with the outcome? Where do you think you need to improve? What are the training? What are the mentorship? What are the exposure? What is the development that you would want to put your hand up for so that you can get better at doing what I expect of you by when I expect of you at a certain standard? So, and I can't stress this enough, the amount of time that we as entrepreneurs and business leaders, we need to put the time aside. We need to prioritize these very important conversations, because only once you've got them all excited, they buy into the plan, they see where they can add, they see where they can contribute. Only then can we now push the start button and we can get going. And of course, I don't want to go into this too deep. What is the management planning frequency in every organization or business? And it happens on 6 tiers. So first of all, we've got to have our annual plan. Okay, and I've just defined what is the annual plan, what are the details, all the detail that goes into the plan. But now it's important that every 6 months, we spend some time to reassess, look at the results, review whether our plans are working. Are we happy with the results? And if we are, great, let's continue. But then we also chop our financial year into 3 quarters. So biannually, quarterly, again, let's measure, let's review, let's reassess. Are we happy? Are we seeing the growth? Are we seeing the improvements? Have we been able to add more products or sales to the funnel? What is the result? What is the outcome? Is my team more motivated? Can I say that we've improved in terms of our team effort? What is the quality of management and leadership? So all of those financial and non-financial KPIs that needs to happen, and that we need to constantly be evaluating our team on. So we've got annual, we've got 6 months, we've got quarterly. Very important to have monthly meetings where we review the result of the month's effort, and of course the weekly check-in in terms of what is the desired outcomes that we are gunning per week, and then of course what happens on a day-to-day basis. Are we clear in terms of everybody in the team's focus? What should be the priority for today? So if we manage by looking at what's our discipline focus daily, that takes care of our weekly outcome, that takes care of our monthly results, and of course it goes up and up. So this is the management planning frequency that I teach business owners with my management training, is all the various aspects of frequency of planning and how we make sure that right down to every person in the organizational business, having clarity around their daily focus and then building up towards the annual plan. Dan, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do.
Great.
So I have a few thoughts on this. So having seen this in action, I think it's one of these things, it's a bit like a recipe. A good chef is going to make a good job of a recipe and a bad one's going to mess it up. So one of the challenges I see sometimes is, you go into a company and they've got quarterly reviews. Now, let's say we're in Q2, but we're running slightly behind on our Q2 thing. We want to get our Q2 sales up to what the forecast was because the boss is getting angry because we're not quite there. Then what they do is they go into their Q3 lead and they pull forward sales from Q3 because they want to get their Q2 numbers up. They give a discount. And then what happens is you've taken that sale off the Q3 chart, and but you've also given your client your client a discount. So now you're behind on 2 fronts there. So I think one has to be quite careful about how you do that sustainability management piece. And I mean sustainability in the terms of like business sustainability. How do you keep your pipeline secure for the year if we have these sort of quarterly measures? And the other one related to that is, I think where people do these 1-year forecasts is, ordinarily a business might grow, but now you put a 1-year plan in place. If every quarter's got the same sales figures, you're plotting a flat trajectory.
Exactly.
So, if you want to double your business in a year, you've got to make sure that Q2's got more sales, Q3's more than that. You've got to almost have the exponential curve as you go. So I think there's some things which people need to think about here. But then, if you expect your Q4 sales to be twice as much as your Q1 sales, then how do you get there? What's the plan so that you can disconnect people's output from their time or something.
Yeah, but you see, Dan, exactly. And what I often see is that we could maybe get to an annual plan, and then we want to jump right to monthly and weekly. But we forget about this middle part, because that's where the real brutal, transparent conversations and assessment and review needs to take place, where the pressure is building towards growing, because it's got to be an exponential curve. And what I often find is, we get busy with the cycle of the year, and we find ourselves caught unaware, because now we're all of a sudden knocking onto Q3 or Q4, but we've only flatlined. There's not been real growth. Why? Because we haven't been assessing the results right from the word go. And also maybe we've been a little bit over optimistic. So we can't get to double figures growth going from here to there. We've got to build on it. So first quarter, we want to see 2 or 3%. Now we want to add another 2 or 3 on the already 2 to 3. So you build on the growth. And I think what often happens is, again, not spending enough time assessing, asking these questions. How can we improve? What should we be doing differently? Guys, I want you to write down the following 3 questions. For me, I love keeping business simple. So when we look at a strategic plan, just ask yourself, what should we be doing that we haven't done? What should we be stopped doing? Because, that's been keeping us from progressing and growing. And thirdly, what do we need to do better? So there's the 3 questions. What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to start doing? And how can we improve? Which are the critical areas in our business that we really need to knuckle down and improve on? Because unless we're going to fix that, we're not going to see the double-digit growth. But it is these interim quarterly assessments. Now, I work with my clients, and we've got these dates in the calendar. And so, by the way, open for all of you to attend. I call them Growth Club. It happens in May. So it happens in February, May, August, and November. 23rd of May, we would be having quarter 2 Growth Club or strategic planning, where you get to spend time with other business owners, and you get to focus on where am I now, where would I ideally wanted to be, and I've still got time to catch up because we're not into quarter 3 yet. But unless I change what we do, I change our focus, we look to up the challenge or pressure in terms of weekly outcome, we're not going to get to the growth that we've envisioned. And again, guys, it's so important to understand that this process can't happen in your head only. Unless you transcend this, unless you communicate, unless you assist your team to chunk it down in terms of where do they fit in, what is the contribution that they need to make, how should they individually be growing, unless you get to take your team with you and lead them on the path, you're going to find yourself completely lonely, disengaged, frustrated, and thinking, oh, I don't know, this is just not worth my while. So I've spent a half an hour explaining the importance of having a plan, because unless we've got a plan, how are we going to build the house? How are we going to build the business? How are we going to get the right people on board to join us to grow the business towards where we want to go? So plan, plan, plan. There's a brilliant book. It's called The Road Less Stupid. And the author is Keith Cunningham. And again, he just emphasizes the importance of having a plan, do the thinking, spend the time to think, and come up with new ways of growing the business. I want to move. Okay, so
can
now
we get our politicians to read that?
Well, you know what? It sounds like we all got that problem, right? I don't know. The road less stupid. He actually talks about not paying dumb tax. Now, not paying dumb tax means I need to get clever at this business of planning, because unless I get better, I'm going to repeat the same old mistakes, and we're just going to rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, and we're going to run out of fuel. And in the end, the car stops to a grinding halt, everybody is exhausted, everybody is deflated, and I see that often. It's such a tragedy. And I think, guys, on that, Dan, he starts the book, it's in the very first chapter. He says, you know what? We aren't born with the skill and the knowledge of running a business. And yet I see people opening up businesses, no real plan, no real thinking. I don't know, for the love of me, I just get gobsmacked, speechless. And how do you want to grow? How do you want to keep on surviving if you don't have a plan? It just doesn't make sense. Honestly, I live in a beautiful town in it's called Strand, and I counted the other day. There's 13 coffee shop type of outlets, from little trailers to coffee shops, 13 on a 2.5-kilometer stretch. Now, and the next moment, literally 200 meters from a Checkers outlet, there opens a little business, and they call themselves Incredible Sweets and Biltong. And I go, what are you even thinking? I mean, you might as well just take all the capital that you've invested, please flush it down the toilet, because that's going to be the end result of this business. Or you could have gambled the money and you would have had a 50-50 chance between red and black, because you're definitely going to lose all your money. And yet there they are, optimistically opening up their business every morning, thinking they're going to, I don't know, sell 200 Rand worth of, I don't know, it's just depressing. So let me move on.
I have a question, Sir Lindie. Like the annual plan piece. I think very often, people, we have these fantastic plans, we put them in place, but it's just a question in terms of the motivation of the team to, for them to do stuff. Because someone says, well, you want to do more in Q4 than Q1, what does that mean to me? I'm still get paid the same amount. I think, and people obviously aren't going to volunteer just to sum or work more because you want to do more. So how do we, what are your thoughts in terms of like having a motivated team that are incentivized in some way to help you go along that journey?
Well, of course. And I think the question in everybody's minds is, so, well, that's all good and great, but what's in it for me?
Exactly,
what's in it for me? And I think some real honest conversations needs to take place. Of course, there's got to be a monetary reward or an incentive, and I love the idea, maybe not, we look at annual salary increases, but I love the idea of profit share. Because, the better that we do, the more we work, obviously I'll get a piece of the pie. The other thing that's often forgotten, Dan, is whilst money is important and it pays for lifestyle and being able to do things, if I were to work for someone and I love playing golf, how about, if you make your target as a salesperson, how about I will then pay your golf subs for the next year? How about, that golf trip that you've always dreamed about, make your target, and that golf trip, I'll pay for all the expenses and you can take your partner with. So what I'm trying to say is we get to people are motivated in many ways, money being one, lifestyle being another one. In my case, I love the idea to continuously learn and develop and get better. So on the other hand, if I was employed by someone and they would say, look, you've always dreamt of doing I don't know, your MBA or a Gibbs Business Master course or whatever, or how about I'll pay for you and you can go to an international convention and you go and get to learn from the best and you can come back and you are motivated and inspired because you've invested in your craft and in your knowledge. So yes, Again, your team holds the key to your future, and therefore we need to be nurturing the quality of our team. We need to be nurturing them in terms of their levels of buy-in and engagement. But then, of course, can I say this for all of you? We all been employees in somebody's team at some stage. I believe we need to position it right from the word go, that while myself as an owner will do everything possible to create an environment where you would love to work, where you feel needed and valued, where I'm happy to pay and pay towards whatever your heart's desire, I would expect you to take responsibility. I would expect you to put up your hand in terms of, owning your own future. I think it's really unfair as an employee to expect that I should be doing all these things for you, but you're just not invested in your own development. So I'm talking about self-management, taking responsibility for self, actively participating in your own plan for development. So, Dan, and maybe this jumps us to the next not negotiable aspect of running a business, is getting the right people on board. So taking time, guys, to do proper recruitment, having clarity around what is the skill required. But most important, Dan, do you excite me as a person in terms of your attitude? Do I believe that you can you've got the capability and are you self-motivated that once you see the picture that I have for us going forward, you will work with me in terms of making that possible? So let's jump straight into how do I build a proper team, because that's fundamental to everything we do. So first of all, you've got to have the plan in terms of where we're going with this business. Then you've got to ask yourself, so what is my people plan? And so I've got a financial plan, that's part of the plan. I've got a people plan, that's part of the plan. I've got a sales and marketing plan, part of the plan. I've got an operational and equipment plan that forms part of the plan. So the people plan is you've got to ask yourself who would be the right type of person, the right fit in terms of personality, attitude, tenure, work ethic, self-motivated, energetic, excited about always developing. Can you hear my language? Because unless you are that type of person, I'm not interested in appointing you to my team. I really am not. Because if I've got to do all the motivation and I've got to do all the pulling and I've got to be the one working harder than anyone else on my team, well, what's the point? So Steve Jobs, renowned with his saying that the best you can do, and so by the way, Elon Musk also said that in his autobiography, the best thing that you can ever do for yourself and your business is take the time to hire the absolute best quality of people that you can afford. And then the second best thing that you can do, stop making decisions for them. Allow them to prosper. Allow them to take ownership. Allow them to mandate them with the ability to make decisions. Mandate them with being creative and innovative and coming up with ideas. So the second worst thing that you can do is then get these great people and make decisions for them. I mean, that's just stupid, right? So my saying, what I coach business owners is hire slow, fire fast. So rather take time, be proactive in finding the right people, meticulously going through a screening process. I coach my business owners on a not selection process, but a deselection process, the details which I'll coach you if you're interested in joining me in coaching. But you deselect until you find the right people that excite you, and only then you get them on your team. And then, of course, put them on the 3-month contract So I'm excited about you, but I still want to see what you are capable of. So we'll agree to a 3-month contract, which is allowable. It's quite allowed within the South African legislation. A 3-month contract. In the middle of the 3rd month, we'll reevaluate and we'll have a conversation around whether I am interested in employing you full-time. Once I've employed you full-time, guys, very important to do the onboarding, to do the training, to make sure there's mentorship in place, to have clarity around performance standards and what I expect of you, by when, how I'm going to measure you, and have those regular check-ins. So quarterly review of a plan, but quarterly review your people plan. Have those performance feedback conversations. And also, you'll hear that again, put pressure where pressure is due, Dan. Your team should be preparing for their performance feedback. They should be looking at assessing their own performance. They should be coming to the table and say, you know what, I'm not happy with how I performed. I think I need to improve on my effort here and there. Could I go for some training? Can I look at some mentorship? How can you help me, business owner, to make me more successful? So again, so the people plan, Dan, is critical. And again, coming back to Michael Gerber, I can't be the operational technician and the manager and the futurist. You've got to divide your focus and you've got to prioritize your time, and you've got to say, where am I going to spend the critical amount of time for the best return? But the one thing that we can never, ever, ever underestimate is the importance of building a winning team and all the effort that goes into building that team. Of course, culture is so important, values is so important, the ideology of this is who we are, this is how we behave. Because like there's a brilliant book, Simon Sinek wrote the book Leaders Eat Last, and he talks about the importance of your team being able to act and behave like a tightly knitted tribe. Now, what happens if you build a tight culture and there's certain rules that applies to how we behave, the team now start taking responsibility to self-correct themselves. And if you find yourself in the position where 1 or 2 people aren't playing ball, you've got this 1 or 2 people that's really, really, negative and not a great influence, what the idea is that the team start banding together, start pushing out those people. They become marginalized. Nobody loves working in isolation. And also not if I'm not getting, I'm not part of the team. I'm not get to play with everyone. They get marginalized and off they go. So they'll hopefully leave, or you need to take some corrective action. So guys, what I'm getting at is there's a framework for building a profitable, successful business. The first one is we need to lay a proper foundation. The foundation of all successful business is to have a proper plan, to effectively use my time, to become really, really good at financial management. Now, what is financial management? Of course, the obvious things. You've got to have a proper accounting system. You've got to make sure that you've got detailed, accurate, updated financial results that you can review every month, because that tells us whether we are growing or not. That tells us whether our plans are working or not. So very important to have updated, accurate financial details that you review every month. And no, it's not the job of your accountant, it's your job. You need to understand. You need to be able to read your income statement like you read your favorite book. You need to understand financial jargon like profit margin, break even, profit contribution, gross profit contribution, cost of sales. We don't have time to go into all the detail of that, but you get you get the idea that you've got to understand the financial results of your business, because that will determine whether you're growing or not, is your plan working or not. And this forms then the basis for really important decisions that needs to be made. The other foundational thing is what's happening in the business right now. How are we being consistent in operations? Are we consistent in delivery? What is the customer feedback and experience? Because guys, we can't grow if growing means that we've now got more to attend to and we are neglecting the loyal customer base that we have served the past year. So foundational focus around operational consistency, making sure that we deliver on excellent customer service, excellent customer experience, because your customers that comes back becomes your most powerful word of mouth. The repeat business is the profitable business because they're not putting pressure on your margins. And most of all, you know, we start building a tribe of business owners that's excited, clients that we take with us on this journey. So critically important as part of our foundation to make sure that we fix what needs to be fixed in terms of operations, processes around manufacturing, processes around logistics. How do we deliver? What's the feedback from our customers? What can we do better? If we don't fix those things, we won't be able to grow, because the moment we start growing, the crack starts appearing. Makes sense, right? Right, so we move on. Once we've sorted the foundation, and of course, as business owner, we go up and down, because as we grow, the next level of challenges arise, and we need to give attention to that. The next one is definitely looking at marketing and getting really, really good at building a sales funnel, like Sarah said. We need to get really good on defining our ideal client who really loves doing business with us. Now, in my own case, I took some time a while ago to ask myself that question. So what are the typical best business type or owner that I love working for or with as a coach? And I came up with 3 things. I love working with business owners that is 100% committed in terms of developing themselves and their business to the absolute highest potential. So I'm looking to work with business owners that's got a growth mindset. The second one is I love working with single-owned businesses. I love working with owners in business that understands that unless they are able to empower other people, they'll always stay where they are. So I love working with business owners that's invested in the growth of themselves and their team. And then thirdly, definitely the brave ones, you know, because to be in business, we need to be brave. To be in business, we need to have the ability to make decisions. So I love working with people and business owners that's brave, that's courageous, that's willing to take the risk, that's willing to make the decision. So I've done the homework and I've come up with those are the type of people that I love working with. Now, of course, all my marketing efforts now would be focused towards addressing that slice of the pie. Kirsten mentioned the various platforms, digital marketing. We've got to be able to be efficient in terms of digital marketing. What is digital marketing? Everything that's on the internet, from a really good website to social media platforms, building a database, effectively, regularly, consistently communicating with our database through email marketing. We need to get really, really good at direct marketing, you know, branded cars, branded signage. What I'm doing now is direct marketing because I've sent out the invitation, you guys have responded, and this is a direct interactive workshop where I get to showcase what coaching can potentially mean for you. And I'm looking to attract those of you that's interested in finding out more, putting up your hand, signing on for some courses or training or coaching. So direct marketing, very important. But I think the most important underrated marketing platform is network marketing. Actively building a strong network of partners, of referral partners, of other businesses, business to business, that have got similar industry, similar target market, but not competing with you in terms of product and service. Building a network of a community of like-minded people that could mean that there's some potential clients in and amongst them. So we need to get really, really good at network marketing. We need to become really good at building our own brand, at building the brand of our company, because if your brand is known, if your brand is liked, and if your brand is trusted, you'll do the business eventually. So you would have picked up that marketing is a contact sport. So get really, really good at 1 or 2 or 3 channels of marketing, and then be consistent with those channels. Consistency in marketing is critically important. And I think we often make the mistake to think that marketing is a short-term strategy. No, it's not. It is a long-term strategy. I mean, I've been on radio for what now, 5-6 years. So people have become accustomed to hearing me on radio. I've become familiar on radio, but it takes 4 to 5 years of actively being on radio for people to recognize me and then, oh yeah, you're the coach that I've heard on radio. I've loved the talk. Fantastic. Keep going. Well done. So I'm building the community of followers, and from there will come my sales in future. So marketing and getting really good in terms of marketing and sales is a not negotiable for all business owners. I've talked about sales in the beginning, so I wouldn't want to repeat that. But yes, in my marketing and sales training, we spend a lot of time around skills in terms of sales. Sales, again, it needs to look at it being a profession. If I'm a salesperson, I'm a professional person. And if I'm a professional person, I need to invest in my skills. I need to train. I need to review. I need to have a plan. I need to be consistent. I need to be disciplined. You can hear all the things that forms part of a successful salesperson. So in coaching business owners and companies, we spend a lot of time around marketing plan, sales plan, reviewing the results, and asking ourselves, how can we do better by focusing on what? If you've not discovered the power of video yet, please do so. Video has become so powerful because if I can get the confidence to stand up and talk about why my product is the best out there, how you stand to gain from using my product or service, and maybe share some testimonials, people out there is watching, they're listening. So I want to share with you in terms of marketing this important ratio. So whatever you do in terms of marketing, digital, direct, social, network, you've got to be able to give your potential prospects out there up to 11 hours worth of material and content that they can serve, they can read, they can watch, because they are doing their homework. Someone out there is looking for you. So a minimum of 11 hours of content about who you are, what you do, what's in it for them, right? Then there's got to be a minimum of 7 contacts. 7 contacts is they should have heard you on radio, they should have received an email, they should have, there was a Facebook message that went out. You've regularly on Yeah, so it's 11 hours there of content, 7 touches where I'm out there, you see me, you hear me, I'm interacting, I'm engaging. So at least 7 touches of contact, of exchanging information. Sales funnel is like a tennis match. I hit the ball, you hit the ball. I hit the ball, you hit the ball. So 7 touches, 7 points of interaction, at least 4 channels. 4 channels. So a channel is Facebook, a channel is LinkedIn, a channel is a website, channel is a YouTube video, channel is a workshop, channel is a webinar series, channel is, God forbid, radio, channel is TV, channel is hosting a host beneficiary, inviting your clients, ask them to bring some friends, let's have a morning tea. So 4 channels, 7 touches, 11 hours. That's the stats. So if you can hear, you never stop marketing. Once you start, you never stop. I've been in business for 30 years. I can honestly say, except for weekends and holidays, I've always, every day, been focusing on marketing, getting my message out there, making it my job to make sure people hear me, they can listen to me. I want to end off with marketing using a metaphor of a lighthouse. So see yourself, your business, as being a lighthouse on the shore. And all I'm doing is I'm throwing the light. I'm throwing the light. I'm throwing the light. I'm throwing the light regardless, hear me, whether there's a ship or not, because that's not the point. My job is to throw the light as clear and strong signal as I can possibly manage, because should a ship come that is interested in engaging with me, there's enough material for them to do research on me. I would have been building trust because there's been a couple of touches and interaction, and I'm doing it consistently over at least a minimum of 4 platforms. You can hear I'm out of breath. Unless you are prepared to do that, you're never ever going to succeed in building a continuous sales funnel with prospects that you can continuously visit and talk about your product and services. So yeah, join my sales training. It's 12 modules, 6 months, not even 2,000 Rand a month. Dare become better at sales. So there we go. Join the class and get better. Of course, I have alluded to the importance of systems. So foundation, marketing, continuously investing in systems. Now, Dan, that's your job. That's technology. There's so much technology out there, guys. Honestly, we don't have to work so hard. Get in touch with someone like Dan. They operate in the tech space. There's so much technology, tools, devices, software that can make our life easier. Honestly, I'm horrified if I have conversations with business owners and they still operate from Excel spreadsheets. I want to kill myself. Because, can you imagine the inefficiency? Can you imagine the amount of hours to update those Excel spreadsheets? And I go, why? Oh, why? We are living in the age of AI and technology. So, listen, if you are serious about business, you need to be investing in AI and technology. And of course, for the majority of us, we really don't know our way around technology. But, there's experts around us. Best is just put up your hand, start interacting, have conversations, upskill yourself. Because yes, unless you invest in AI and technology, you're going to be dead in the water within the next couple of years, given that's a fact. And then finally, remember we talked about team, so, I'm not going to repeat, but this is a very simple framework, touching on all the not negotiable things that forms part of your business. And me as a business coach becomes your support, your best trusted advisor, maybe your, I don't know, your devil's advocate that keeps you accountable to do the work around foundational stuff, marketing and sales, continuously investing in systems, and of course, make sure that you've got the best possible team that you are managing effectively, or your managers are managing effectively, that you are leading towards the future in such a way that people just love working for you because you made them part of a solution for the future. And of course, all of this brings the result. And the result is a business that grows. The result is a business that improves in terms of value. The result is a business that you could think about selling, or you could think about engaging with partners and shareholders. So what's the point? The point is build something that grow in terms of value. But know this, unless you're going to be the only swan, the only piece of music in the orchestra, none of this is going to happen. So I'm standing here today as your coach, the last hour and a half, pleading with you to become real around your dreams for the future. Please become serious about putting that into a clearly defined plan. Get really, really serious about investing in your skill. You trust me, you don't know enough. Trust me, you won't keep yourself accountable to do the work. Trust me, you're going to run out of steam and motivation, and you're going to give up halfway. I'm the coach that's going to tell you, hey, remember that dream, remember that plan. We still can do it. So get really, really serious about keeping yourself accountable in making this worth your while. 30 years down the road, would I have wanted my life to be easier? Maybe. Would I have wanted it to never be part of business? Absolutely not, because through business, I've grown so much. And I get to fulfill my purpose. My purpose is to lead with significance, to coach with impact, make a difference, get people to change. Please get up from that chair, get up from that comfort zone. Start taking yourself and your business serious, for goodness sake. You owe it to yourself. And then finally, to live with joy. I thank you. I think, it's actually impossible to talk about business in less than an hour and a half. And I've really tried to share with you my thoughts around how I look at successful, sustainable business and the things that's really not negotiable. So if not today, when? So ask yourself a couple of questions. I'd like to ask you to just maybe unmute yourself, maybe just share one or two ideas or BFOs that you found to be valuable this morning. And if this was powerful, please, I'm going to follow up with you. I'd love to set up that next conversation. Yuri, we need to finalize sales training that you guys have been intended to do. Elaine, Elma, Monica, consider the business masterclass. You won't regret it one bit. Get serious about what is the next step. And I think, if anything, I want to leave you with that question: what's the next step? Right. Anyone wants to just share any value you've taken from today? And please share the love. Tell people about this. I'm going to share this recording with all of you. Pass it on. Please help me spread the love. Let's get the message out there and get people to be more successful. Anyone wants to comment?
Yeah, I'll comment, I think. Thank you, Lindie. Really insightful. Appreciate that. I can only think that if you've been in business for 30 years, you must have started quite young.
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah. It's really nice actually seeing it all come together, because I think very often as entrepreneurs we you just kind of crack on, and eventually you end
Yeah.
up with a sort of accidental situation where you think like, oh hell, what do I do now? Um, that framework piece, I think, as you've got there on the screen behind you, I think is really important, and it's something that I think we need to think about as well. And I appreciate your mention of the systems piece and AI. I
Yeah.
mean, that's literally what we're doing. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
building the operations director for every small business. So you'll have AI in your
Oh,
pocket
wow.
helping you. So appreciate the mention.
Oh,
Thank you.
wow. I'll definitely be knocking on your door. That sounds super interesting. Anyone else? Come on. Helene, Monica, what has been some feedback? Monica, what have you realized?
Sorry, it's very loud behind me. I apologize.
We
No
can't hear. It's
problem.
fine. We can only hear
We
you.
can't hear it. That's fine.
The lighthouse analogy, it's literally like you were saying, throw the light and your ship will come. And that was very valuable, and I'm sharing that in the team meeting after this. It's gonna be
Yay.
short. But that is like I said, you literally like your ship will come, you throw the light and they will come. And it's
Yeah.
our job to do that. And yeah, today has been very valuable. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed
You're
spending
welcome,
this.
Monica. You're welcome. No, and I can't emphasize it enough. Your job is not to look out for ships. Your job is to throw the signal as loud and far and clear as you can. And the ones that's looking for you will find you. Your ship will find you. But hear me in this. A lighthouse never stops, whether there's ships or no ships, irregardless of the weather, irregardless of the storms, irregardless. Ding, 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 ding. So we've got to be patient with the effort. We've got to be, keep ourselves accountable. We've got to be looking towards the consistency of the activity. The results will sort itself.
I also think what you said about values, when your company has a certain set of values, you attract the clients that you want with similar values. And if you're
Yes.
open about your values and you're consistent in it and everyone knows what it is, you attract the clients. So the deselection process isn't that big because you're already attracting the right people. Also for your team, because we're looking to appoint people now, and I already have people in mind because I already know they align with us, and
Right.
that was something
Right.
important.
Yeah, Monica, when we talk about ideology and values, we as a business owner, I'm building an ecosystem and I'm surrounding myself with team of the same value. I'm surrounding myself with clients that's got the same values. I'm surrounding myself with suppliers and a broader community that resonates with who I am and what I stand for. And all of this starts making sense. And I feel myself in a comfortable, trusted space. So it's so critically important. But then I've got to have clarity in terms of who I am and what my ideology and values are, my guiding principles. Get serious about your guiding principles in terms of behavior. Yeah. Okay, great. So guys, thank you so much. I'm going to love and leave you. It was fantastic. I loved it. I enjoyed spending time with you. So remember, what's the next step? Second of all, help me share the message. I'll be sharing this recording with all of you. And finally, get serious about being the best version of yourself. And you know what? Have some fun. We've been very serious the last hour and a half. But find the fun again. What's the point? So have some fun, lighten up and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much. God bless. And hopefully we'll be chatting again soon. Thanks.